Welcome to the Strangers on the Way podcast. I am so excited to have today's guest. I feel like this is going to be one of the most exciting and interesting interviews that we've ever had. Mark Sedacca is currently a resident in Florida, also from New York originally. I met him when I was down visiting my brother. He's actually my brother's neighbor, which is like so wild. But got to hear his stories. He had such a light. Actually, my mom met you first, I think, just walking the
That's
dog,
right.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's so fun. And yeah, really excited to get to know you. Mark is a street pastor or a pastor de la calle. So he's got lots of stories, and just the impact his life has made is remarkable. And so I'm really excited to just delve in. Mark, thank you for being on the show. I would love to hear just a little bit about who are you? What do you love? Anything you want to share with our listeners?
I'm Mark Sedacca. I love life. I get to live life exceedingly abundantly. I've been through a lot of trials and tribulations in life, but I'm not a survivor. Survivor, if you're in the water, you're barely floating. I'm a thriver. I've thrived through the circumstances and the happenstances of life. I moved down here in 1980. So I've been in Sarasota for 44 years when it was a sleepy beach town, which it no longer is. It's kind of like Miami West. But I ran a big business. We wound up selling Walmart all their seafood, and I was the vice president and I handled all the operations and made a lot of money. I had a beautiful daughter, great wife. My daughter was 3.5 when I got diagnosed with first they misdiagnosed me. They kept misdiagnosing me, but then I got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, fourth stage, and they say, get your house in order, you will surely die. And they say, but that's the good news. The bad news is that you got metastatic cancer, liver, kidney, colon, and adrenal glands. Long story short, after some tribulations at home and other things, I came up with the saying, Miss Lauren, that when people perceive you have money to burn, you attract matches. And I was so wealthy that after the strokes, I had two strokes, I couldn't defend myself. So the money kind of evaporated, and I became a ward of the state of Florida. They took me out of a dumpster. I was living in a dumpster behind Saxworth Avenue. And I became a ward of the state of Florida with a given less than a few months to live. I took no medication. I refused all man's medication. And that was between 2001 and 2000, the end of 2006. And I was sick for 7 full years. And biblically, seven is perfection and completion. I got healed in my 8th year, and providentially, eight means new beginnings. So I got a new start in 2000, the end of 2006. So I come walking out of hospice. I got my freedom. I went from 106 pounds back to 196 pounds. And like this right here, this is turmeric and ginseng and all natural nutrients that I take. But in saying that, I got a phone call from an old friend who had a stroke also. He was down by the Salvation Army. I went to meet him there. I didn't even know where it was. And it was a cold night. It was a November night. It was very cold. And I had one jacket to my name that somebody gave me. And I was walking down by the Salvation Army, and a homeless gentleman came up and he was slow of speech. And he said, I'm very cold. That's a nice jacket you have. And I said, oh. So I took my jacket off and I gave it to him, put it around him. And that was the beginning. That was my calling. And a calling from God was never a collect call. It's a personal call to each person.
Yeah.
And we've all been given gifts, certain named gifts. And whether it's music, singing, it could be accounting, whatever it is, most people never unwrap their gift and then celebrate it and share it with the world. So, Miss Lauren, I got to do that. I went walking into the Salvation Army. I never left for 7 years.
Wow.
Um, I started the church across the street. We started giving away lots of clothing. We had a big clothing ministry. I started getting 8 tractor trailers a month. So I went into our local big storage place here called Hideaway. And there was a time of when the economy wasn't doing so good in 2007 and 8, and they had a lot of empty storages. So I said, listen, I have 1 million pounds of clothing here and coming in total. And I said, I need 68 storages. They thought they hit the jackpot. So they come out with all 68 contracts. And I said, oh, and by the way, I don't have any money. So They told me that the owner, they said the owner has a $250,000 ministry account that nobody ever taps. So for almost 11 years, 10 and a half years, I got to have 68 storages for free, which is probably worth several $100,000.
Wow.
And eight tractor trailers a month was coming into me, and it rebuilt me. I became very strong. I wound up being like 210 pounds of muscle again. And it providentially helped me working in the
Mm,
streets, especially taking on some very, very bad people that prey upon our homeless, especially the women.
mm.
So long story short, I used to do clothing ministry giveaways at churches, and I did one in Bradenton where we gave away, the first year was 110,000 pounds,
Wow.
and we took up the whole sanctuary, and 4,000 people came, and in 4 hours, all the clothing was gone. The
Wow.
next year was 140,000. The next year was 150. To put that in perspective, that's probably what a Macy's or a big department store has.
Wow.
And people say you can't and you won't and you don't. Those are disempowering words. I say I can do all three. You know, they tell me it's always, people will tell me it's impossible. And I tell them impossible spells I'm possible. As long as I'm possible, I will achieve these things. So go ahead, ask me anything you want.
Oh, so good. So beautiful. When I'd love to, yeah, go back to when you were homeless and you put the coat on the homeless man. Like, how did you know that was a call? I think I work
It
with
did.
a lot of young,
I,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
I didn't know. I've always been a very I always like to say, may he increase, I decrease, because that takes me out of the equation. I believe that the word ego means edging God out. So I don't ever try to edge God out. But
Mm.
I just knew at that point that that was a calling for me to eventually, because I used to have a lot of clothing. I had a Mercedes, I had the nice house, I had all the trappings. The business was doing almost $500 million a year. I was wealthy, cruises, vacations, California, Hawaii. And then when you were living in a dumpster foraging for food at night, and I also wound up, they said, with my fibromyalgia and lupus, so I couldn't go out in the sun at all. Look at me now. I'm out in the sun,
You're
praise God.
very tan.
But at that moment, I knew that something had changed. Something the paradigm shifted for me, and this is what I needed to do. I recognized it right off the bat, and providentially, people started donating clothing to me. And
Wow.
once I got that 911 building, I just the address was 911 Central Avenue. It's right
Hmm.
across the street from the Salvation Army. So we put in glass blocks in the front, air conditioning. I had a bicycle repair ministry, a clothing ministry during the day, full library. We had an employment opportunity center there, and I was doing that for 7 years. Um, it was such a high privilege that the Salvation Army told me that they wanted to make me the world's first non-army, non-Methodist minister pastor of a Salvation Army as a prototype. And then they said to me, what is your salary requirement? So for a few minutes, I sat there writing and I kept writing. And finally, they said, what are you writing so much? I said, I wrote 0.0. I just kept writing zeros. And I
Mm.
said, you can't pay me to do my calling, what God has called me to do.
Wow. Wow. That's so good. So, back to when you were sick, how
Yeah.
did you walk through that? I know a lot of people face chronic illness or are undergoing cancer right now. And I know it's very complex, but what did that process look like for you? What did you do on really hard days? How did you
Every
get
day
through
was a
that?
hard day.
Yeah.
When people ask me, what is pancreatic cancer like? Especially fourth stage, because it's hard to detect. By the time they detected me with an endoscopy, a radical endoscopy, they said
Yeah.
fourth stage. So it's kind of, I told people, it's kind of like having 30 root canals in your chest and you can't leave your body. But then I also had kidney, liver, colon, and adrenal glands. So everything was shutting down. How I didn't become a diabetic, I don't know, because your pancreas and your adrenals make all your insulin. To this day, I'm not even diabetic, praise God.
Wow.
Um, um, through the abandonment, through the abuses, and I was locked away. I was beaten. I was put in straitjackets and beaten. Praise God. I tell people I would not be who and what I am today save for all the trials and tribulations that I endured. And I
Wow.
tell people, don't judge my breakthrough until you know my been through. And
Yeah.
my been through was horrific, but I thank God. I tell people, if you lose $250 million, $250 million, you're more than a moron. You're more off than on. You're a more off. But I say sometimes you got to lose everything to
Mm.
gain everything in Him. Sometimes you got to die to get a full life. I got my daughter back. I got my vehicle back. I got my house back. And I tell people, if I'd had a hound dog, like a country western song, I would have got everything back in like a country western song in reverse.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's powerful. Um, and so you, I mean, you're like a miracle.
Well, I'm listed as a Miracle Memorial Hospital like 7 times over. And
Wow.
I teach people about diet, how to not take
Mm.
sugar, how to
Mhm.
alkaline their body. So I get to have various aspects of ministry. It's not only
Yeah.
the clothing, it's not only the street ministry. I minister to a lot of single mothers, thousands literally of single mothers. I work with churches on the board of the Ministerial Association, on 6 different boards, getting kind of bored of boards, but that's okay. That's another story.
Yeah.
Um, the thing about that is, what a miracle that a person who was awarded the state of Florida that could not even get a bottle of water unless he asked his guardian is now the chairman of 3 different boards, is on the
Mhm.
Ministerial Association board, who gets to be on Miss Lauren's podcast, who started 360 Church with Pastor Steve 18 years ago before being called out by the Salvation Army. So, it's all a testament. I tell people your mess becomes your message, your test into a testimony. And I'll ask you a question. What do you
Yeah.
have to have a miracle? Every miracle in the Bible started with what? What do you think?
Faith.
Faith, yes, but a problem. If there
Yeah,
was not a
that's true.
problem,
That's
it
true.
would not be a miracle. So
That's
the Apostle Paul said, don't despise the fiery trials you're enduring. Persevere through, stay the course, finish the race. So I work with a lot of cancer patients. I was at a function the other night, and there's a man who had brain cancer 5 different times. And he
wow.
has his own website, and he actually donates $2,000 to anyone who has cancer, no questions asked, through
Wow.
the foundation. So I'm going to be
Wow.
teaming up with him, with Team Tony.
Mm.
And long story short, you are called to be um, like Barnabas in the Bible, to inspire others, to lift them up. Um, I'm a street pastor, and I tell people I more than survive. I strive to thrive, to arrive alive. That's no jive. However, whenever God calls me to be.
Love it. That's beautiful. So at what point in your journey did your faith obviously is very strong. Where did that come into play? Have you always kind of believed, or did you kind of hit rock bottom and
I was
encounter the love of God?
I was born Sephardic Jewish, but my family didn't really participate in it much. My mother would light candles and stuff, but my rabbi was Maya Kahani, who was the head of the JDL, who got assassinated. And then I never went again. But I always would talk to God. If somebody lost, a little quick story. If
Yeah.
people lost something, I would always find it. Like a man lost his
Mm.
grandmother's chain in the water at Rockaway Beach. I dove in the water and I saw something sparkle, and I came out with his chain. Somebody lost $20. My mother would always say, keep it. I said, I can't keep it. It's not right. It's not righteous. So even at 8 years old, I was talking to God.
Yeah.
When you get sick is when the rubber hits the road. And the Bible instructs us that he not only is he the God of the breakthrough, but when you keep your eyes transfixed upon him, he says, I will bring healing unto all your flesh. And I stood upon that. It didn't matter what the trials and the tribulations and the prognostications of me dying were. I knew that had a daughter who was 3.5 at the time, who's now 25. And
Wow.
praise God, she's the clerk of the court in Sarasota.
Mm.
And my daughter and I are very close, and she's amazing. She's beautiful. And I've regained her as an
Mm.
active in her life. And long story short, Lauren, my faith is what kept me alive, along with my love for my daughter. I said I cannot die. I cannot leave my daughter. So
Wow. Oh, that's so powerful. I
will to
lost yeah, I lost my dad to suicide, and so I just love that you are connected to your daughter so strongly. That's beautiful. Yeah.
she is my world. She's my, and she knows it, and
Yeah.
she knows. She actually, for my birthday card, she wrote, Dad, I'm not going to get you a card. I just want to let you know I've listened to everything you've ever said. I heard everything you do, and I know you're the only one who will always be there for me for my for my entirety of my life as long as you're around. So now I have to stay healthy and I have to stay well because I
Yeah.
have to be there for my daughter. So
Yeah. That's beautiful.
yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you kind of went through hell in a lot of ways, and now you are ministering to people on the street. Could you share just a couple stories that you just love to share from your experience being a street pastor?
Yeah, well, there's so many over, the
Yeah, I
27
bet.
years total.
I bet.
Um, just Christmas, the biggest church on Main Street, which really wasn't the downtown church, but I've been talking with them a lot. So the new pastor there, his name is John Cross, go figure. And the former governor of Kentucky is a pastor there now. They wanted to do a homeless feeding for Christmas because
Mm,
the ministerial station does one for Thanksgiving, and we attract 300-400 people. We feed them, we give them supplies. Well, we did one there for Christmas, and I got to teach the people. We had 150 volunteers, and we had almost 400 people there. The mayor, the chiefs of police were all there. And I tell people, you're going to laugh. I tell people, I'm a hopium dealer.
mm,
Hopium. I
opium.
deal in hope.
Love
Hope
that.
means hold on, pain ends. Okay.
Mm.
Attitude means always take the initiative to utilize daily enthusiasm. Okay. And in
Love
that
that.
enthusiasm, we formulated a beautiful meal for our homeless that was catered, a catered meal, clothing, supplies, gift baskets, blankets. It went over so well that on February 4th, they said to me, hey, let's do a Valentine's one for the homeless. So they
Mm,
printed up me 400 flyers. I went out to the streets and the highways, the byways, the woods, the bus stations, the Salvation Army. I went into the South and we're giving away all the flyers. And 156 homeless came. We had 160 volunteers. That means more than one volunteer because they
wow.
want to be the downtown church now. Okay. It stirred their heart, which we need. So,
Yes.
long story short, out of that, we had 36 salvations and 5 baptisms. Christmas, we had 35 salvations and 5 baptisms, which is unheard of for a
Wow.
homeless feeding, for a gathering.
Sure. Sure.
So many stories like that, where I go out in the middle of the winter and it's pouring rain, and not it doesn't snow here often, but
Mm,
but it's 38 degrees and it's cold and it's pouring rain, the winds are whipping. I go in the woods and I grab some bags out of my garage because I have a lot of stuff in the garage, and I
mm,
didn't know what I grabbed. And you know what I grabbed, Miss Lauren?
mm.
There was bags of rain parkers in their plastic sealed
Yeah.
ones, and there
Yeah.
was about 200 of them in those 2 bags. And I'm
Wow.
handing them out. Calling me Jesus. I said, no, there's only one. Don't call me that. I'm just here. Why would you come out on a night like tonight? I said, because I was once like you. And
Mhm.
I have to be my brother's keeper. And I have to be compassionate. Our role is not to be comfortable. Our role is to be comfort to others who are
Yeah.
suffering and hurting, and especially those homeless women out there. My heart breaks for them.
Yeah. Wow. Have you gotten a chance to meet any of the homeless women and any just stories of redemption or even like how do you I know it's a complex issue, like how do you get help reinstate them into society?
Well, many different ways. Number one, I talk to them about their life. I get to know them, their families.
Yeah.
They tell me their stories. That's the interrelational, personal aspect of it, the
Yes.
relationship. Then I try and very gently get them into different either ministries, or we have a thing here with the police called the HOT team, the homeless outreach team. So I try and either get them incorporated with them. Sometimes the hot team will send them back, say Chicago, say Miss Melba or whatever. Miss Melba's from Chicago, like
Mhm.
and I start contacting her family, and I said, if I can get her well enough to travel, the hot team will send her either by bus or by plane. If you'll take her in and get her reestablished into society, that's one less. Each one reach one. So I
Mm.
tell people, because I minister in South Africa a lot too, but think globally, act locally. If
Mm.
everyone was stay in their lane and think locally, each one reach one. Each one that I touch is somebody's daughter, somebody's son, somebody's mother, father. I've had people say to me who they looked older than me from methamphetamine or crack. Um, Please contact my children right before they passed away, and it breaks my heart. And at the Salvation Army this year, I read the names of 116 of our deceased homeless. I got to do the benediction prayer, and then I realized, I did the math on it. 70% of them were under 40. That
Wow.
is the scourge of what fentanyl is doing to
Yeah.
society, and such
Yeah.
a large number. And it's being addressed lightly, but it's not a major topic, and it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you talk more about that? Because I know the heroin has been obviously, I think it's starting to, people are aware of it, but fentanyl is kind of like terrifying because it can be cut
Oh,
in
it's terrifying.
anything. What are you seeing? How can you help even just parents that are, helping their kids? Any wisdom about that in particular?
Yeah, I do what you just said. What I'm doing right now, I go to churches, I go to institutions, I teach even in some of the most liberal schools that invite me in, which is amazing. And I talk to the youth, but I talk to the parents, and I give them life examples, and I tell them, and I don't hold back. I tell them how many have died in my arms, literally in my arms. Some of that I've administered to 20 years in the streets. And I keep telling them, if nothing changes, nothing changes. If I
Yeah.
always do what I've always done, I'll always get what I've always gotten. And one whole in 1 week period, I had two die in my arms, and it's mind-boggling that this life that these people are now gone. Thank God for me as a pastor, I know that where they're headed, but
Yeah.
still, I minister to anybody. I've ministered to Moroccan Muslims. I don't care if you need help and I have it, it's yours.
Yeah.
Okay. My last name, Sedacca, comes from the Hebrew word Sedacah, which means to be benevolent, and charitable. So I
Mm,
have to try and live my family name. But
yes.
there are so many people that are hurting and disenfranchised. As I like to say, they're feeling broke, busted, and disgusted. And I
Mm,
tell them, when you hit rock bottom, that Christ is the rock at your bottom. But you have not because you ask not. You have to let go of the pride. The middle
mm,
letters of the word sin and pride is I. You got to let go of those things. So now you asked about healing and how do you get through it? The first letter of the word illness is what?
I.
I.
Yeah.
Take out the I, put in we. Now, illness spells wellness.
Mm,
When you start including God and other people in your journey, you can't
so
do it on your own. So, how major is diet and nutrition is paramount. If you do not alkaline your body and you have cancer, you're feeding the cancer. Sugar feeds cancer, acidity feeds cancer. When I was starting to get a little bit well in a hospice, or where I was at with this Filipino family after, I all with any money I had coming in, I would buy turmeric, the spice, in
mm,
capsules, and I was pounding turmeric. Well, this year is fresh turmeric and ginseng and the lemon, because lemon is alkaline. Lemon and cucumber alkaline the body. So
okay.
every day I drink. Yeah, so it's very important. You
Yeah.
you as a woman, you need to alkaline your body.
Mhm.
So long story short, we are what we eat. If you eat junk food, you're gonna show it. If you drink a lot of alcohol, it eventually shows. If you smoke a lot of, I have never ever touched a cigarette in my entire life. I don't know what it even feels like. I've
Mm,
never done drugs. I don't drink, and I try and live a healthy lifestyle. I'm going to be 67 next month. Well, 23 weeks I'll be
happy
67,
birthday.
and
Mm.
thank you. I say age is mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. So so important that you guard this. You
Yeah.
can't use yap voice in your head that says you can't, you won't, you don't, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you'll never be able to. You have to speak empowering thoughts to yourself, because the brain believes everything it sees. That's why you dream at night. But the mind disseminates. So
Hmm.
you have to speak truth in life, blessings, not cursing, even to yourself. You have to
Yeah.
speak words of empowering words, not disempowering words.
Hmm. How did you, I know that can be a shift for a lot of people. How did you, have you always kind of had a positive mindset, or did you practice that empowering?
Always, always.
That's
Oh, you
awesome.
know what happened? I went away to back in the mid '80s. I went away to this. I can't call it self help. It was self help at these seminars, and there was 7 days. They were intensive.
Yeah.
First day there, the teacher says, one of my mentors said, "Sing. We're going to sing row, row, row your boat." I said, "That's goofy." But as they're singing row, row, row your boat, I'm the only one that sang row, row, row your boat gently up the stream. And he said, "Stop. There's always one. How long have you been rowing upstream?" I said, "Oh, I need to be here." At that
Wow.
point, I started intaking positive, not only affirmations versus aspirations. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, you can aspire to be anything, but what you affirm, I tell people, and I really admonish fellow pastors, stop telling people to be intentional.
Mm.
Stop being intentional. Be committed. I intended to be on this podcast today, but
Mm.
I saw Dunkin' Donuts. I pulled off the road. I ate a baker's dozen donuts and 2 coffees, but that didn't happen because I committed to be here with the gracious, wondrous Miss Lauren today on her beautiful podcast. Be committed in all things.
Yeah.
Autograph your work with excellence in all that you do.
That's so good. As you were talking, I heard a lot just that there were volunteers. It seems like you're so well connected with the city. And so, how did that happen? Like, how did you bring people together? And for those who maybe live in different cities that are not as, like, I don't know, unified in solving the city's problems, like, what tips would you have for people that would want to kind of rally people around for causes like this?
Okay, great. I just taught a lesson on that the other day. I said to people, if you're waiting for a move from God or you want to hear from God, do what a waiter does and serve. Get
Yeah.
out of your own stuff and go serve somebody else. My name was pretty much dirt after being sick, losing everything. My credit score right now is about 850 out of 900. When I
Mhm.
was in those dumpsters, it was probably below zero. Okay. To
Yeah.
rebuild that up again, to reestablish yourself. One of the chiefs of police who used to be a sergeant in the streets with me, he's now the chief of police. The
Hmm.
chief of sheriffs is now my friend. The mayor is my friend. The ministerial association, I know every pastor in the city. Why? Because I put myself out there, I make myself available. I am available 24 hours a day. I get phone calls from the hospital, 3, 4 in the morning, or even the police, car
Wow.
accidents. You see, ministry, I don't do it for any income, Lauren. I do it for
Hmm.
the outcome, which is
Hmm.
helping and blessing other people. I haven't had a paycheck since 2001.
Wow.
I'm in my
Wow.
house. I'm in Bahami sweater on. I do great. I thrive,
Hmm.
and I'm blessed.
Wow. That's beautiful. How did you build those relationships with the chief and the mayor, like just through service and seeing what they needed or seeing what the
Service,
city
your
needed?
walk, your walk is louder than your talk. You don't ever have to tell anybody or announce how anointed you are, you're this title. I always cross out all the titles and put servant. And the
Hmm.
police appreciate that. Um, I made a donation to the police department, and they said, we can't take 300 pairs of Bomba socks. We can't take clothing, but we could take food. And I made a joke on them. I said, but I could poison the food. I'm not going to poison your socks. And eventually they took the socks in and they gave the socks to the police academy and all the trainees. And then I got a commendation letter from the police department saying, thank you for taking care of our young police officers.
Hmm.
So it's through that servitude and the love. They've seen me. I have my face broken by a police officer, who broke my face. I've been arrested and brought in 29 times. And I don't despise or dislike any of it. All the things that have happened have brought me where I am today.
Hmm.
I would not be who I am. You know, God talks about pruning in the Bible. You got to prune things, and broken things through the brokenness. Literally, you got to crush and pulverize grapes to get grape juice and wine. You got to crush and pulverize flowers. You got to crush and pulverize olives to get the oil. God works best through broken and contrite spirits.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. Oh, so powerful. Well, what are you looking forward to just in the coming weeks and months? Things that you're working on or noticing?
Um, I'm waiting for my passport to go back to South Africa. I've been there 6 times. And
Awesome.
I live ministering in the shanty towns. I go into places where, if it's in the winter and the children are running up to you with no clothing, and you bring clothing and you bring food, and then the elders walk up and they bow and they do this to me. Everywhere I go, they always say this to me: "You're our pastor now." I said, "No, no, I live
Wow.
10,000 miles that way." I said, "Why would you say that to me?" And they say these horrible words to me: "You're the only one that has ever come." And
Mm.
this church is 2 kilometers away or 2 or 3 miles away. They
Mm.
get 50,000 people on the weekend, and yet they stay in, they don't go out.
Yeah.
South Africa can be a dangerous place, but I go into places where they haven't seen a Caucasian face since
Mm.
apartheid ended. And I walk in there with no fear. Fear to me means false expectations appearing real in the mind. And fear is diametrically opposed to love. So fear, you don't fear the dark, you fear what could be in the dark. You don't fear
Mm.
heights, you fear falling. It's these logical things that I put into action. So if I'm going out in God's love, I don't go out with fear. I can show you pictures, and I will next time you're in town, me hugging elephants, me walking in between rhinos and touching rhinos. That doesn't happen. The safari leader, I went out alone with him. He called me the animal whisperer. He says, "How do you do that?" He said, "Normally they run." I said, "Because they can sense love and they can sense fear."
Mm. Wow.
It's so powerful. Even if you're sick, even if you have cancer, even if you have a stroke, believe that God is love and that you can be and will be healed. But you have to have the right mindset. You have to keep your faith. You have to eat properly. There's a whole regimen of things you do, and all of it is positive. Okay, you have the attitude of gratitude, not the stinking thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so good. You're very, very inspiring. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
so good.
I appreciate you. It was such a pleasure meeting you. You were such
Oh,
when I met you, for all her podcast listeners and followers, she is a bright beacon of light. She was a ray of sunshine.
mm.
She walked up in the front of the church where I was at, and she just lit up the whole front of the church. So thank you for you
Oh,
being
that's
you.
very kind of you. I felt the same about you. I was like, who's that guy? He's like on fire. Just as we close, I'd love to hear like how do you stay connected to God's love? Like how in your relationship with him, like it's very evident that I think you can see people who are connected with Jesus because it flows. Like love flows out of them, light flows out of them, joy flows out of them, peace flows out of them. It's really evident in you that all of those things like it's fruit, so it's just from being connected with him. It's like the byproduct of that. Like how do you stay connected? How do you stay connected with him? And
I
for
had
someone
something
that might
very
want that, how do they get it?
well. I can't, like I said, I kept my eyes transfixed. Your uplook matters more than your outlook. Okay, my
Mm.
uplook is what kept me alive. And I'm laying there in hospice, and sometimes I would lay there and I had nothing to do. I mean, I was laying there alone, and I would lose my breath, and visions would come into me. Now, I woke up from my second stroke speaking Hebrew. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Shalom Aleichem,
Wow.
and some Aramaic, and I started getting visions. Now, from my second stroke, I lost my mind's eye, the ability to see like my daughter playing, but it gave me laser focus. And then I started getting all these insights from God.
Wow.
And I think he kept me alive to do what I've been chosen to do. Queen Esther, her name was Hadassah. Queen Esther said, I was for a season or a time just as this. So this has been my time. I've ministered literally to millions of people since coming out of being ill into freedom. And I believe if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change the way you think about it. And, I aspire to inspire before I expire while I perspire with extreme fire and desire.
I love it. I feel like you need to write a book.
Everyone says that. My friend just wrote to me and said that. And I thought I wrote my book on Facebook. After 16 years, I had 700,000 posts on there. I had 250,000 videos. And one day they said to me, "You did great." And they really monitored me. They put me on restrictions. And they said, "You did great. 700,000 posts, this, and this, 2 million friends, 2 million likes, a million loves, 18,000 friends on all continents. And now you're gone." And they deleted everything.
Oh
So
no.
I thought I wrote a book on there for free that's available in Singapore and Thailand, Indonesia at 24 hours a day. But now
Mm,
I'm back. I have almost 4,000 friends again and followers,
yeah.
different people now, but on all continents. So I get up in the morning and I preach across the world on my Facebook.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't let me keep a particular name. I had to put my J. My middle initial is Joseph. They wouldn't let me have Mark Sedacca because people can then access my old account. You see
Okay.
how that power and control is in social media?
Yeah.
So I go with the flow, Miss Lauren. I give what's taken to me. I do it with joy. I don't despise even the attacks. It's all lessons in life.
Yeah. And I feel like knowing you, that's not going to stop you. It's almost like going to be a catalyst for something even bigger.
I want to make you laugh. I told my friends the other day, I was speaking to a bunch of friends on a Zoom call, and I said, listen, on my tombstone, I'm gonna have a video, I'm gonna have a screen on there, and you're gonna push the button, I'm gonna still be talking.
I love
But
it. That's so
I'll talk
awesome.
to the tombstone. Imagine if you did that with your relatives. You could tell them how much I love you, miss you. But
Hmm.
everyone, if you have a tombstone, you're gonna have a born on date and an expiration date. And in the middle, this little dash.
Yeah.
That little dash is going to represent Lauren's whole life. It doesn't say anything, but your whole life is in that dash. So I ask people the question, are you dashing to live or you live in the dash? Are
Mm-hmm.
you going to live life to the fullest or are you going to get caught in the busyness of business and busy in life? I thought my business was my life. And the
Hmm.
second I got sick, the business didn't care about me.
Yeah.
My family did, my daughter, my friends that I got back. I wouldn't change that for the world, Miss Long.
Yeah. It is about the people, right? Ah, so good. Any last words of inspiration before we end?
I'll give you an 8-word sermon, and it's a
Okay.
powerful sermon because I preach to people whose attention spans could be a little bit shorter due to alcohol and other abuses. But prepare and prevent rather than repair and repent. It's that
Hmm.
proper preparation that causes the separation into the elevation. I became a wordsmith from a person they said would never talk again.
Wow. Oh, you literally are a walking miracle.
Thank you. You are too.
Thanks so
You're a
much, Mark.
blessing.
What an honor to have you on today.
Thank you, Miss Lauren. It's a privilege and an honor, and just to get to meet you and to get to be on this podcast has been a high privilege and a high honor that is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.